There have been some funny last couple of days. People have not been able to join meetings, or people all join the same meeting and don't end up talking to each other. So there may be some issues to do with Meet. Oh, but not today. Good.
Hi Neil, hi Johnny, hi Tex. So Alex sends his apologies. Do we know if Duncan is back, Neil?
My understanding is he's still on holiday this week. Actually, my understanding was that he went to. My understanding is he went to Erevo. He had a big family gathering this week or next week or whatever. So he just extended his stay in the States because I took some holiday.
Yeah, so we're not expecting.
We're not expecting him, no.
Yeah, I think Sebastian we're expecting. No information about Marcus. I'll just paste the agenda into the chat.
Well, it sort of is the city season, isn't it? Yeah.
If you pin it, it'll stay in for people coming after the chat.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You can unpin it at the end if you wish.
Okay, so what I propose is, so we've got the meetings being recorded. Hi, Sebastian. So we have 4 TSC members, so we're not quorate again. What I had in the agenda was follow up from last week. So ISC survey maintainer retention program. We had the VRF tiebreaker. We need to have a general discussion about that.
And we need to be quorate. That needs to be a quorate meeting, definitely. Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So until we have a quorate meeting, we can't really discuss it.
Yeah.
Hard-Fork working group reactivation we discussed very briefly last week, but we need to either take a well, we should have a discussion. Hi, Christian. We should have a discussion this week, or else take that offline for.
Can I ask? Is there? I know we don't necessarily have it. This sounds like something we have to make a relatively urgent decision on to get it started. Is that correct?
I think we've got a bit of slack, Neil. So what I'm not hearing is that we've got a version of the node which is almost ready for a hard fork. What I'm hearing from the release meetings is that 10.6 is about to be released. There's no work on 10.7, and any version for a hard fork is going to be 10.8, starting with 10.8 or later. Okay, So my estimate is that it's at least 2 months before we need to be in a position where we're actively taking coordination decisions on the hard fork event.
In which case we can postpone it then, because basically, I mean, a hard fork takes what, 2 to 3 months to organize in general?
Slightly, yeah. 3 months is probably a minimum now because of the 6-week voting period.
Right. So until there's, so it sounds like, you know, we should suggest. I know we can't make a decision, but we should suggest that the hard fork working group is reactivated when the release for it is likely to become available. Yes.
Yeah, but it'll be relatively soon. If we're going to have a 2025 hard fork event.
Okay, and
just backtracking. So we'll need to start to organise in September or possibly October if we're going to exercise it in 2025.
Do we have a list of proposed features for the hard fork?
That will be the first thing to.
We don't even have a list of what's going to be in the hard fork yet.
No, we don't have a definitive list of what's going to be in the hard fork. What we're expecting are some ledger updates, including the bug fix that was discussed earlier. We're expecting Plutus upgrades, specifically V3 primitives carried down to V2. There may be some additional Plutus features. I'm not aware of anything major at this point in time.
So it's all it's an intra-era hard fork, right? Next
Correct.
one. So
Yes.
it's Protocol 11, but no era change.
Correct.
You're muted, Neil.
We're still not quite covered. So,
No.
so I was just saying. So I think we note the fact, because we're not actually making a decision. We are covered now.
We are correct.
We note the fact that we're not that should be the trigger event. We should look for it to form it in. We suggest we form it in September, and it's an intra-hero hard fork. And what's it mentioned is some a new version of Plutus, is what you're saying, and with some bug fixes and a minor modification to the ledger.
So the first step, as you say, is to determine what the features would be, so these can be socialized as necessary.
I think it's more about the validating the scope, but this is really everything, right? And then basically announce that this is going to change. It's not like we wouldn't know what can go in, because I think these things are worked on already. Like there is a candidate list and features which are actually going into the node right now. But it's more about to kind of like validate and then socialize the scope, which is probably the first agenda item for the working group.
Yeah, so I don't think any of so in the past, Sebastian, there have been some things that have been contentious, either because they have been included or because they've not been included. So rather than going to the community and saying, this is what it is, take it or leave it, a slightly more engaged approach where we discuss with the community sufficiently early in the process that they can tell us yes or no is going to be beneficial.
So it's a proposed list where we will have comments like that. Yeah, that's the first thing.
So I think the first thing to do is, as you're saying, Sebastian, collect the list of proposed features, circulate that to the community, and say, and first of all, get a validation from those impacted that they're comfortable with features, and secondly, if there are things which they would urgently want to be included, to raise those with the developer teams. Because it may not be at this stage, it may not be too late to do that, but if we delay by a month or so, it may be too late.
Yeah, okay. And inversely, this means if you start the hard fork working group only when we have a release candidate, this is too late, right? It should actually be a conversation before.
Exactly. There has to be and a smaller group. It doesn't have to be a major. It doesn't have to be a large group.
But before you joined, Sebastian, I asked when was this likely to happen, and apparently we're at 10.5, and it's not going to be at least until 10.8, and the guess is that's at least 2 to 3 months away. Okay.
I mean, by the definition, I think it's 11, which is the hard forking version, right? So, but the real question is, which one are we going to nominate as being 11?
Yeah, but it's at least 2 releases away.
Yeah. There's more work to be done before we can actually think about hard forking with a version.
Yeah,
I'm not on the Haskell implementation set. Yeah,
exactly. I'm not hearing that 10.7 will contain the features that would be necessary for hard fork, though it is possible. So
I would suggest let's be a bit more positive and say this is what we think is going to happen. Please shout. We need people to engage with us as opposed to complain afterwards, right? They need to say okay, and then we need to make sure that everybody, not just the Haskell, but any other nodes, are in a position to move as well, right?
Yeah. So we need to proactively engage with other node developers to inform.
Because otherwise, that really does become a fork, right?
So I think there is a notable time. There is a lot of people meeting up in end of September. It's called the Node Diversity #2 workshop. I think it's more about attacking and testing and adversarial testnets and these kinds of things. But this sounds like a topic which could be surfaced there, right? So reminder, hey, we restarted the working group, make sure to join there. Basically, if we would have it going by that time, end of September, this would, I can bring in engagement and basically community being like, oh yeah, good, saw it, good, I'm good with it.
But we're finding the reasons to put a time frame on it. Good, let's do it.
Great. Okay. Sorry, so we slightly skipped over the first 2 agenda items, so let's just go back to them. Follow up from last week, ISC survey, we've circulated to the TSC members. If you have any comments on that, please make them before tomorrow or the very latest by early on Friday. So this is your last opportunity to make any comments on that. We had reached an agreement with in principle on the IC meeting on Monday to progress with the survey. They're just finalising the wording now, and we're not expecting any significant changes to that. So all going well, we'd expect that to be put out in the next few weeks, because the goal is to have this done, I think, before the voting on before the next set of elections. Maintainer retention program. We had some discussion from last week. For those, hi Johnny.
I can report on it if you need it, but if you're going to introduce, okay.
No, go on. So why don't you report on that?
So it was originally brought up in release meetings that I attended, and then a specific meeting was set up with Jeff from IO to discuss the nature of the program and details. That happened on Monday. Also, an email went out from me about 2 weeks ago asking for people to put commentary on the draft questions I had for the application form. Some of the feedback said that they wanted examples that were given by applicants to be specifically related to the repository that they would be working on rather than any other work. As a compromise, I've put a subtext under the questions that they put this note on, saying that preference will be given during the application assessment to people who have worked on the repositories that are being applied to be worked on. So that sort of prompts them in the direction of giving the answers that are preferred by the people who are going to be, mentoring them or helping them through the process, rather than completely blocking out applicants. And then there's been a couple of meetings between me, Christian, and Tex, and Adam at times about how to set up the assessment and sort of ongoing thing. There's a straw man document that Christian's been working on. I don't know if he's ready to share it yet. He's going to be speaking to Arnaud and another Christian. Who was the other person you were going to speak to about that strawman document, just to make sure it fits the expectations from people who've worked on the
Sarah.
repository? Yeah. So there's two people who have former core repository management or maintenance experience that are going to assess that document to make sure that it's suitable as how the program will be structured. Jeff has said that they might be willing to help in the interview process. At least assess the interviews as they're carried out, just to make sure that they're getting people that they view as suitable. So there's been a lot going on, but that's sort of a rundown of what I've been doing in the last week. And the questions are finalized at this point and are going to go into a multi-path application form based on whether or not people are submitting their community repository to get a stipend for work that they're doing outside of core, or if they want to apply to be a maintainer on core.
Thanks. There's some concern, I think, from the developer team about the effort involved in potentially mentoring retainers. Did you?
Yeah, this was the discussion with Jess on Monday about the level of access and the kind of work that'd be requested to do. This is the detail of the strawman document with the meetings that are coming up. Try and work out what level of input they would have to the repositories. It's not going to be direct coding and merging requests. It's going to be more maintenance and tidying up of existing things or things that were left behind before because of other work, and it's getting that balance struck. So there'll be further meetings and discussions with Jeff. We're setting up a weekly stand up just to see where we are. So yeah, that we're coordinating.
Brilliant. Great. So thank you, Johnny. So if there's nothing else to say on that, should we skip on to the VRF tiebreaker question? Who would like to introduce that? Maybe Adam, if Duncan Coates isn't here.
If Adam doesn't, I can volunteer as tribute.
Sounds like Adam isn't volunteering. Good.
Okay. So this is a historical issue for anyone watching the meeting back. Hello. But this used to be the case that whenever there was a slot battle, not a hype battle, I said it wrong last time. When two blocks were being produced at the same time and arriving in the same slot, there was a battle that took place to work out which one got the block, and then it would build from there. And it used to be that people with smaller delegation, SPOs with smaller delegation, would have a higher chance of winning that battle. We should have gone for a rap battle in the chat. That's funny. But yeah, and that changed whenever it was noted that this was happening and the developers got wind of it. And it wasn't an intended feature. It was an accidental feature, not a bug. And then they fixed it. They fixed it to be actually 50-50 every time, which has caused community upset because it's based on anecdotal reporting. It seems that the smaller pool now doesn't get it as often, but that's just anecdotal reporting. It probably is verifiably 50-50. Neil?
Has anyone actually done an analysis of the bias that was there and what quantified it?
It was definitely a known bias, and it was reported on by Andrew Westberg in a YouTube video years
back. Has anybody sat down and done the analysis to quantify how much the bias was? I.e., are we arguing? Are we arguing about one part in 10 to the 6, or are we about one part in 3 or something? And what I'm trying to say is,
well, yeah. the sort of community knowledge is it was almost every time the smaller one won, but that's community knowledge. You'd have to speak to Andrew and others.
So you'd have to look at the frequency with which the slot battles occurred, Neil. Right? So I think you're asking.
No, I know. There were two aspects here, right? One is how frequently do slot battles occur. We know that. Okay.
We know that. Yeah.
We know that because the thing is that the thing is working. But the fact that they were biased to make a decision, right? I think they were biased on. I think we need to know how the code path has changed. And we need to document the nature of the bias, right? Because without documenting the nature of the bias, we can't. The problem is this could, in the nicest possible way, this all could just be hearsay, right?
No, it was definitely a thing.
Yeah, but the bias.
I know what you're saying, that it wasn't fully quantifiable, but it may. I am saying that it's community knowledge at the time, but I think it was. I think it was based on actual data, and it was a real issue, and it was addressed and noticed as an issue, and there were code changes to fix it. So I don't think it was just like people thought it was that way.
Alexander did it. Good, he did. Wait a minute. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you.
It has been done. The thing is, there wasn't any bias. It was actually half-half. The problem is that as a larger stake pool will issue more often blocks, obviously they will be more engaged into battle, and they will win more battles than small pool, because small pool will produce less block. That's the only thing, actually. It's not a bias. It just
No, it isn't biased now.
It's
not biased now. It is 50-50 now, but that's after a code change to make it that way. It was biased towards small pools previously.
Yeah.
And it isn't now. But because people see it as a change, as you say, it may be verifiably 50-50, but their lived experience, they feel like they're being left out, and that it was better the old way. And this has been brought up as a community issue. However, there are attack vector potentials around bringing back such a bias towards small pools, but so that's one of the concerns, is like, if you moved it back to the way it was done before, could someone take advantage of that by setting up a series of small pools to be more likely to win battles? But again, it would be an edge case.
Well, I think that, thank you for referring to that, and could you pin that? It should go into the meetings, because actually this does quantify the change. It actually quantifies the largest increase and the largest decrease in the change. Okay, and it basically says that what was the words I was just looking at? The largest relative loss from this change is minus 1.4%, and the largest relative benefit from this change is plus 2.6%. Right. So,
rather small percentages.
Right. This is the point. It may be unbiased. If it's minorly, the original solution may not have been. Actually, we now have this problem of being fair, right? It was Bernoulli. It wasn't. I'm just saying that has to be incorporated in the notion of making a change, right?
What you're saying is moving it back, although it may feel like something that helps smaller SPOs to them, it may be mostly a placebo effect because of the relatively small percentage change that it had an effect on.
Yeah, that's slightly. This is why I was just saying we have to be quantify the size of the effect, right? That's what I was after, right? It's just, guys, it's a 1 or 2% change, and
people live and die by 1 or 2% changes, I think, would be the argument from community.
But isn't this also giving? Aren't we gaining also better optics now for only like a 1 or 2% difference? Because it will, like, changing it back would be much a strong direction, saying, yeah, decentralization is important. Small pools should be, in a way, it's incentivized again. Now, it's not exactly fair as it was, but now it's acknowledged that, okay, you give this 1% edge to smaller pools, which goes even more than the monetary value of 1% here is maybe not big. I'm not sure what percent of what, but maybe there is a social cost or benefit to this too.
So you need to change. You need to notice that this 1 or 2. Let's be clear about what this 1 to 2% change is, right? It's a 1 or 2% change from what they would have got in the other circumstance.
Yes, indeed. But the point is the relative. I mean, the way it's a strong way to put it, but the relative harm of reducing that edge that they would have towards smaller pools is that if it's a pool that only gets 1 block every like 17, 20 epochs, and then they lose out due to a slot battle, edge that they can get. That's their argument. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's the argument.
Now I think now we're saying is, so, I mean, let me play devil's advocate for the moment. The devil that could say, right, that we are going to introduce a security risk to resolve that social.
Yeah, I've already said that it becomes an edge case where someone might set up a series of small pools just to be able to get an edge on the slot battle if it should occur. If it's a very convoluted attack that they'd be setting up doing that.
And I mean, all of the security arguments is basically based on these choices being Bernoulli, i.e. unbiased and fair. And this is making it no longer unbiased.
It was already made no longer unbiased and made actually 50-50. It would be bringing back the community's opinion of fair.
This is I have to deal with this. I'm saying we would now make it biased. We would deliberately.
Yes, exactly. It would be deliberately making it biased to be in line with the community opinion of what is fair versus an actual.
No. That last part of the statement, I don't think you can evidence. Right? I'm saying,
Well, the fact that it was raised as an issue by people in the community to bring it back would be evident.
But you can't say. Right, what I'm trying to say is, if you. This is okay. I'm not trying to be awkward and a bastard and adhere to specs and all the rest. I'm just trying to say that this stuff is difficult, right?
It's right there.
It's difficult because what is fair, right? And basically, the mathematics approach for it was unbiased. That was actually.
Yeah. I think we're just agreeing with each other in different words. But Nicholas, you have your hand.
But we would have to. I think this would have to go to an on-chain vote to introduce bias.
I don't disagree with that. That would be an info action, yeah. But
because if you want to introduce bias into the operation, then the work has to be done to say, does this open up a security risk? That's all I'm saying, right? Because as soon as you say I'm no longer going to be biased, the mathematics doesn't. You have to redo the maths from scratch.
If I remember correctly, the Prowse paper says that whatever solution you choose to solve these battles, because it's what happened when you have looked at the longer fork and all this kind of stuff. So it's the last resort to solve the battle. So whatever you are using to choose a side on this battle, it won't affect the security of the protocol. Again, I need to double check this. But if it is the case, if it is the case, it means that
Preyas only argues about height. It doesn't actually about choice within that height. Yes.
Yeah, and if it is the case, it means that it all boils down to: do we want to give a small advantage or smaller pool or not? In which case, it's probably more a product question than a technical question, because from a technical point of view, there's no issue with this. So it all boils down to, okay, do we want to give a small pool a small advantage, knowing that we will need to change some code to do this, and that basically this effort will have a cost? Maybe we need to estimate the cost and to see whether the effort is worth it from a product perspective or not. But from a purely technical perspective, I don't think there's any issue with that based on the original Preyas paper.
Yeah. And it doesn't. It really is going to make. The point is, it is a matter of what does the community, and at which point this is all of the community, not the people who've just spoken, see as fairness. That's the key question, right?
Yeah. And this is why I think it's basically a community/product question rather than a technical question. From a technical point of view, I don't think there's any issue with it.
No.
Sorry, Sebastian.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. Thanks for adding that detail. And this kind of makes it, if you can pick any direction, right, we could even lean further into this. Like, if the people want to support small pools, it says the smaller stake should always win, not only sometimes, right? It's not on a slight edge, but always edge for smaller pools, which means bigger decentralization. And if you want to have that change, you need to put that forward. You need to say why this is fine and why does it not impact Prowse security. But if you have the choice, that could be the feature request now, the CIP actually, how Cardano should be improved to kind of pick the decision if it can be made arbitrarily, then maybe this is the thing what people want.
For the recording, right, and I want to make sure this is recorded, Sebastian, right? If you were to make that sort of bias, you definitely would create an attack vector,
I agree with this statement.
right? Because then basically small pools, it would be advantageous for everybody to have lots of small pools and then collude together to be able to create longer chains. Right?
However,
I don't think so. Just saying that-
you're technically correct, but how often would these slot battles occur?
They
The likelihood
occur-
goes up the more pools there are.
No, at the number of pools. Now, this is something I can speak to because I recently did some analysis on all of this, right? At the numbers we are talking about, the effect of the number of people in the pools is in the 4th to 5th decimal place of probability of how things happen, right? We're talking 1 in 10,000, 1 in a million.
So
change.
does this mean that this potential attack vector is almost, acceptable?
No, because you could change. Well, you asked me how slot battles occur because here we go. The mathematical analysis is based on the fact that that the probability of a second person having a slot battle doesn't change because the first one won. Does that make sense? That this is the idea of its replacement in the population from a statistical point of view. You haven't removed it. They are not modeling the removal from the population of the person who has voted to change the biases. Peter Thompson and myself 5, 6, 7 years ago did that analysis, right? And recently had to revisit it for other reasons. And in it, for population sizes of 20, 30, 40, 50, this becomes a very small factor. At 10,000, it's an extremely small factor, okay? Because you need to understand all the analysis was done because the optimal number of pools is about 100, right? In terms of performance and getting you, when we're 10 times bigger than that. So it doesn't make, but the point, what does come out is that this is only a small bias, and when that decision comes up, so you already talk, what is it, something like 99% plus of the time, if you are the person who wins the block, your block will actually end up on chain in the absence of height battles.
Yeah.
Okay, forgetting height battles at the moment, these are slot battles. Slot battles only are very, very infrequent. Like a triple slot battle, I think we've had one.
Yeah, and even that might have been someone running 2 block producers on their
No.
pool.
We have had a genuine one because I basically had a celebration that day, right? Because it was such a rare event.
Yeah, but wouldn't this then maybe be like kind of, how could this then be mounted as an attack, right? If there is the probability of it is already so low, then how could this be like used?
No, you've got to put your. If I wish to attack this now, I as a big stakeholder, I have a large amount of stake, and I wish to attack Cardano. So what I do is I take my large amount of stake and I basically create 10,000 pools of very small size, right?
Okay.
Right. At which
that sounds like a bad idea in other places.
No, because I don't care about the economics. I'm trying to attack you, right, at this point. Right?
Yeah, but you only get an edge on a slot battle, but you will not produce blocks in all other cases.
I now get a 2% better chance of having a long run of my nodes producing the slot battle. That's where the security issue comes in. Because if I can get a long run of producing blocks under my control and know in advance that I can do that, I can basically start to bias the chain. So the 51% argument ceases to hold, is what I'm trying to say. It might become 53%. I have no idea. That would require analysis. That would be my. You've put me on the spot. That would be my initial. Right.
But again, this reasoning, Neil, defeats the idea of the papers that whomever you're choosing to win a battle, it doesn't affect the security of browse.
Yeah, but that was assuming that all of the operators. If you look at that argument has a precondition, right? That there aren't people colluding, that all of the operators are not acting in a colluding way.
It's assuming that the operators are random variables. And what's happened is that this changes that.
So it doesn't matter. So what it should say is it doesn't not matter which you pick, but basically as long as it is like arbitrary.
No,
in a way.
no, actually, if you read the paper, it sets up a set of preconditions, right? And what we've just done is change. We've broken one of the preconditions, right?
What I think Neil is saying is what the paper says is, of those, if you have a number of eligible stake pools, then any of those is permissible as a choice, right?
No, it doesn't say. No, it doesn't say that. You see, what it does say is that under a set of circumstances, right, in which people are not colluding together, right, or only so much percentage of the state colludes together, etc., right, then basically height battle is sufficient, right? And what we did to make it more, but the problem with preserving, and they were, so they're saying the choice of how you resolve slot battles is what's the right words here? The choice of how you make the slot battles does not affect the security, right? No. But then, if you would like, but it does affect things like time to settle on chain, for example. Can I know in advance? If I've seen my transaction on chain, will it have won or not? Will it be there in 10 minutes? It affects that. Because the VRF function is a way of doing the tiebreaker faster. Otherwise, you would end up with a lot more. If you didn't do the tiebreaker, then everything was only settled on height, you would basically have a lot less throughput because you'd have a lot more height battles. Does that make sense?
Only on high congestion, only on high utilization. So
no. The problem is this would actually
if there is a hate battle, and you basically have the same transactions in both, then they don't lose throughput from it.
No, they would be high battles. You would lose work because, let me explain. Right, in the current situation, with the delta parameter, where everybody knows everything, right? The slot battle is resolved inside the diffusion time. If you took the VRF out, the slot battle would only be resolved when basically one chain become longer than the other, so you get a lot more forks. Does that make sense? You get a lot more hype battles and forks without the VRF
but more forks doesn't mean that there is necessarily less throughput, because you can have the same transactions in both. No?
High battles reduce throughput because although they may have the same transactions, right? They represent represent work done that wasn't actually put on chain, so they're reducing the effectiveness of the system, which means that under high load you will get less throughput.
Under high load?
No. Under high load, you would see it. All right, you would see the effects of this, but you are getting effectively less throughput. And by the way, the system is designed to operate under high load. It has to. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if the community wishes to try and make a different bias and change things, that's fine. But this opens up potential security concerns, and security concerns are not things, you can't just solve them in 5 minutes on a conversation like this. Honestly, they take weeks to think through, right?
So, are we in a position to take a vote on this? I think Neil is saying
it requires further discussion.
Actually, what I'm saying is, unless there is a strong community push to reinsert this bias, I'm suggesting that the amount of work necessary to validate that change doesn't open up an attack, we should just avoid doing it if we can avoid doing it.
The order of things to happen then would be to have a vote on whether or not an info action goes up on chain for the community to decide.
Well, actually, it's the key thing I would see is, given that there is a large opportunity cost, there's a cost on the community, individuals within that community, to go and research would have to be funded to analyze the effect of making this change. And knowing that from the work that we already know, right, is that, the effect of that, quantifying the effect of that change for those people, is that money well spent?
It could still do it without being funded, but yeah, it needs to go through. I think it needs to go through a CIP, which includes a security analysis of why is this not a problem.
Yes, that would be.
And I think this is the consequence of, like, you can't change. So it was maybe okay to change it back because it is maybe the how it was intended.
It was
ideally the change. What IOG did should have gone also to the same argument, saying, okay, we want to change it back to what it is today to be more in line, and this is why it was actually meant that way originally, and this is better. This is better known to be like within in line of the security argument.
I think
then you have consensus on this, but if you want to change it again, biased again, you need to have the argument for why this.
So is the mathematics the law or the code the law is what we're talking about here? And if you're going to if you're going to change the law, but the law has, for the law to be changed, right, a CIP needs to be raised.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing, and then we can get to Tex possibly, because he's raised.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was trying to determine whether we're in a position to make some motion, Johnny, but go ahead.
I don't think so. I don't think we are yet. But yeah, the other thing, just to make sure it's mentioned on this meeting, was the diffusion time was mentioned, how quickly the blocks are propagated, and quite frequently during these slot battles, it has been noted that the one that has the longest time for getting its block distributed is the one winning the battle. Now, I don't know if that's quantifiable as happening more regularly than not, but this is something that people have been putting up on Twitter. They've said, look, it's happened again. This person has a longer period of time and they've won this battle.
The reason for that is, right, that's actually misinterpreting how it works. Now this I can be bloody definitive about. I did spend 3 weeks looking at this, right? Okay. And basically, the interesting thing is the one that has the best VRF, right, is basically going to cause other people to roll back and roll forward before their before their block gets diffused. So from looking from the outside world, you would see that that block will be the longest one to be diffused because it's unrolling other things. That doesn't mean that they've misinterpreted cause and effect, if that makes sense. Right?
Okay. Well, we don't have much time to get into the detail, but I'm glad to know that's the case. And yeah, let's move on.
Okay. So the question that's said is there a motion to be put forward?
I'm going to suggest that that given that this would require a CIP for this should be raised and properly evaluated, in particular for the security concerns that may be possible.
So you're going to propose that, Neil?
I propose that yes, I'm going to propose that this is a change. This is a change in the definition of the fairness of operation, right? For which we believe a CIP needs to be raised, which must include a security analysis.
Great.
Last time such a thing was requested, it already existed and hadn't been acknowledged by this committee, which was. So I'll go and have a look.
But is there a CIP? But it still needs a CIP. Yes.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm just saying it may already exist. I'll do the research.
I am unaware of it. I'm unaware of the security. I'm unaware of the security arguments anyway.
I'll fish around and report back next week. But yeah.
Okay, so we're going to hold this off till push this back till next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, Johnny, if you can show that there was no available meeting, right?
Great.
Yeah, I'll check with the original people that raised it to see if they already wrote a SIP to go along with it, because they tend to be quite fastidious in that regard. I'll just double check.
Okay, so let's close the discussion off for the time being. We'll come back to that again next week once Johnny's investigated whether a SIP exists. Okay. Yeah, so we've discussed the reforming the hard fork working group. Tex, you have an item to add to the agenda? So
Yes, I did.
what was the item?
So I would like the members of the TSC that are here until April to begin considering whether or not you'd like to step up as the chair. We do need the chair to be someone that would be here through April, and out of the new body that's elected in October, we would select a vice chair. That's the standard that's going for all of the committees. I know there's 3 out of the 5 of you here, if I'm not mistaken, but I just wanted to get that out there and make myself available for questions if there are any.
Yeah, so obviously we don't know the composition of the TSC after the elections, Tex. So,
But what Tech is, I think Tech's suggestion is those people who are not up for re-election should be the primary candidates for the chair.
Exactly.
Right, but that's only. Yeah, but that people have to be willing as well, of course. Yes.
so happy to discuss with anyone who's considering that what the additional responsibilities of the chair are, so you can take an informed decision. And likewise, after we know who the new members are, happy to discuss that with anyone who's interested. Great. So the other items we had, budget committee survey. I've asked people to complete that. I've got a few responses to it. I was trying to do it myself yesterday. I got timed out before I completed it. I don't know how long it took you to get through it, Johnny.
I did it on my phone, but I'm a fast typer and answerer of things, so I got through it without it timing out. It's submitted.
Okay. But could you give us some idea about how long you spent on it, just so we know?
Oh God, I don't really time myself when I'm doing things. I'm not that. It was probably less than 4 minutes.
Okay, so it's a quick survey. It is a quick survey.
Yeah, well, I was reading the questions, multiple choice. Some of them had multiple selections, and some of them didn't. Prioritization was asked for, and write-in responses was requested a few times, and I wrote in every one of them, and I still think it was under 4 or 5 minutes. Okay,
great. So it's a quick survey. So there are relatively few responses. So please do provide feedback to that. The other 2 items I've got, update on the stipend discussion. So I fed back to the ISC the feeling of this group from the meeting that we had last week. I know that wasn't very representative. The situation seems to be that the proposal is for stipends to run from June 25 to June 26. If someone is a member of multiple committees, they should receive stipends for each of the committees that they're serving on. The stipends that are being proposed are 500 ADA per committee member, 1,000 ADA per chair for each committee.
Per year?
Per month.
Okay, that's per calendar month or per lunar month? I'm sorry.
Let's assume calendar month.
Okay.
It's probably going to be a number of epochs in practice.
You are laughing, Nick. I have.
No, I know what you're saying with the epoch time frames.
Important, man. Contracts are important. Yeah. Capital terms.
So this is this situation as it's being proposed, and what we discussed last week in the group that was present was that we wouldn't impose any rules on who would or would not be eligible to accept the stipend. So we leave it to individual members' discretion as to whether they feel they can accept the stipend or not. So we won't impose a blanket rule on that. And we also agreed that, or we proposed that there shouldn't be a performance-related component for the stipend. I felt that was a divisive thing to do. Either the stipend is offered, and we accept that people perform their duties. If people do not perform their duties for the committee, they can always be removed from the committee. And that's a better mechanism than trying to incentivize individuals to participate in the meetings by dealing with stipend, I believe. So that's where we are. There's a minority opinion at the ISC that the stipend should be backdated till January, but that would need to petition the Intersect board or the Intersect executive, because that would need to be funded not from the Treasury withdrawal taking place, but from some Intersect funds. Johnny?
I'll just officially record that I was not part of that minority, and I don't really have any issue with the June start date myself. And I took it to Twitter in a poll to ask people which option I should choose, both committees, one committee, not take it at all. And I'm following that as my decision-making process, since it is going to be my decision.
Yeah, for clarity, the minority opinion didn't come from this group, it came from another committee, Johnny. So nobody in this.
Okay. I'm just recording it in the recording that I wasn't part of that minority.
Great. So there is one unresolved issue, I think, which relates to co-chairs, and the question is whether co-chairs should be equal, should be equally entitled to the higher stipend rate or not. I don't think that's resolved yet.
Kind of a misnomer if they don't, isn't it? Like, then it would be vice chair, not co-chair at best.
Yeah. Yes. The question is whether the stipend is being awarded by virtue of the title, the office title, or whether it's being awarded to the committee, right? So you could say there's an argument that if you have two co-chairs, each of them should receive
750.
750.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that also
needs to
feels
be
like
resolved.
an Intersect-wide policy to be resolved, not something
Right.
that they would let us mere technical steering committees decide.
No, this is definitely an issue for Intersect to resolve. But if you have any, I'm raising it because it's an open question. That's all. If you have any strong sense.
Out of curiosity, how many committees actually embrace the co-chair versus chair and vice chair model?
I'm aware that, the product committee does. I think most of the committees are embracing chair and vice chair. Ben.
All right.
So it's not.
Yeah, we could move on. That's good.
So if you have anything to feed back to the ISC next week, I'd be happy to raise that. But I think that's an update on the situation there.
I don't think I have anything that can be passed on without a sarcastic tone. It's fine.
Happy to adopt my best sarcastic tone, Ben.
No, it's fine.
Okay, and the last item that I had raised was we're following up on this 2030 vision document that I've been promoting to this group. I've put together a shared document, so please, if you want, provide any input to that shared document, any feedback on the vision. The vision is not a product committee vision. This is intended as a general vision from the Intersect committees. So don't see this just as being a product thing. They've initiated it, but it's intended to be joint. And the way this is being followed up on is that there is a joint meeting to be held next week. Anyone who is interested in engaging with that is welcome. So any member of this committee is welcome to join in that discussion. I'll forward the details to you. I won't be present next week, so either Adam, can you step in on my behalf, or if someone else would like to join that discussion meeting, please volunteer now. So the meeting is going to be held on Thursday, and I think it's at 1300 UTC.
Next Thursday, not tomorrow.
Next Thursday, not tomorrow. Thursday the 28th. Sorry, 3 p.m. UTC.
I should be able to make that work.
Thanks, Adam. So I'll add you into the channel where this is being discussed. But as I said, this is not exclusionary. If others want to participate, either for one or more meetings, they're very welcome to do that. Great. That's all the items that I had on the agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to raise? Anything we've not covered? Great. So thank you, everyone. And I won't see you next week. No, sorry, I will see you next week because I'm traveling on the 28th. I won't see you the week after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Here you bye, ta-ta.